Okay, so this is the next part. We're going to start with number 12. I think we got all the way through number 11 last time, so we'll see how far we can get. So number 12, select the properties below that would be considered chemical properties. Now remember, chemical properties are those characteristics that will change the substance completely. So if something can do this thing, that means it's changing it on the molecular level. It's not going to be the same after it goes through this transition. So a chemical property, flammability, if you catch something on fire or if something is flammable, is it going to change the thing? Yes, it will. So flammability is definitely a chemical property. Density, if you measure the density, which is the mass per volume, it's not going to change it. It will have the same density, whether you get the density of a little bit or a lot of it, it doesn't change the density. So that's not a chemical property, that's a physical property. Mass, same thing. You can measure the mass of a little bit of gold or a lot of gold, but the mass won't, like the mass will change depending on size, but it's a physical property. Okay, it won't change gold on the molecular level. So letter D, the ability to corrode or rust, or it disintegrates over time. Corrosion is a chemical property because that will change the substance. It won't be the same on the molecular level. Condensation is a state change. That means that you're having gas vapor that cools down really super quick and goes to liquid. So condensation, is it still water vapor? Is it still the water molecule if we're talking about water? Yes. It just goes from vapor to liquid, but it's still water. So that's a physical property. It doesn't change it. Okay, then number 13, select the kinds of changes that would be considered physical changes. Now this goes back to kind of what physical and chemical properties are. So if you put something through a physical change, it doesn't change it on the molecular level. So like it's not chemically altered. So things that would be considered physical changes, if you saw a piece of wood in half, is it still wood? Yes. So that's physical, sawing a piece of wood in half. Baking a cake. So if you have cake batter and then you put it through the baking process, it's no longer batter. It's not going to be, you're not going to be able to physically put it back the way that it was. So it does change it on the molecular level. You have caused it to go through a reaction. How about melting butter? If you melt butter, can you put it back? Is it still butter? And yes, it is still butter. Like if you put it back in the fridge, it'll solidify again. So that's a physical change. Melting is a physical change. Frying an egg, can you undo the frying of an egg? No. Once you fry it, once you cook it, it's over and it's ready to eat. So that's a chemical change, frying an egg. Boiling water, is it still water after you boil it? Yeah, there's still water molecules. You're just going through a state change. It goes from being a liquid to vapor. You're just separating the particles, but there's still water molecules. They're just no longer in a liquid state. So that's a physical change. All right, define pure substances. Pure substances are those that have constant composition. Constant composition. A pure substance will have a constant composition. And again, whether you examine a little bit or a lot of it, the composition will be the same throughout. Okay. Pure substances, by the way, would be like elements like silver, gold, hydrogen, platinum. Pure substances could also be compounds like sodium chloride or carbon dioxide gas, oxygen gas, or nitrogen monoxide, things like that. All right. Number 15, a compound and a mixture are both made of two or more different substances, but they are not the same thing. A compound is considered pure. So what's the difference between a compound and a mixture? The main thing is, again, a pure substance is made of constant composition. Constant composition. And it cannot be separated through any physical